Hello Everypony, it's Dasho Salt here, also known as Dasho Halite, and I'm back for another tutorial video. Today somebody asked me, how do I actually make a horn? How do I vector a horn properly? So I decided, it's been several months since I've done a tutorial video, so I'll come back and we'll do one with a different subject matter. Here we have, of course, Princess Luna, a fan favorite character and one of my favorite characters as well. This particular frame was taken from one of the most popular episodes she's ever been in, Luna Eclipsed. And in addition to Luna here, I also have a Season 2 color guide by 90sigma.deviantart.com. I have a few other color guides with Luna on it as well, but they don't seem to have quite the same colors that Luna has in this particular episode. One thing you do have to be aware is that this episode was supposed to be filmed during nighttime, so her colors are a little bit darker than she might be elsewhere, but we'll just use the colors from this color guide while we're working on this particular tutorial. Now, the primary purpose of this tutorial is to basically render this horn here, so we'll start by doing that. I'll assume that you've viewed most of my other tutorial videos, so you have a basic understanding of what we're going to be doing here. So I won't spend a lot of time delving into all of the basics. If you do want to learn more about those, you can certainly view my other videos. So we'll start out here by using our usual line drawing tool, the Bezier curves. I'll just draw something that looks like this. We'll go back to node view. We don't really care what the bottom of this horn looks like because we're never going to see it. It's going to be completely hidden. So we can just ignore that for now. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to try and make this look kind of like the tip of her horn. We'll smooth these curves out to make it a little bit more uniform. And then you have more or less the basic shape. We also need all of these curves in the middle here, so I might as well draw those while I'm at it. I'll turn all of my snapping on. So I'll snap to path, and we're just going to draw straight lines. I'm going to hit enter after each one here to draw my basic lines. Doot, doot, doot. Can't quite see that. All right, we'll swap back to our node tool. And now we're just going to effectively kind of bend these to more or less match the tilt that we're seeing here. The usual line bending. Nothing really all that special about it. Pretty much 90% of what you ever do in Inkscape. Try to line these up properly here. That's not quite right. It's a little better. Okay. I'll go with that. Might as well. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to exactly match the source material. All right, we've got our basic horn outline here, and what we need to do, of course, now is try to match the colors and the thickness of the lines underneath. So we'll go back to my old favorite standby of fiddling with the stroke. Try 5. Does a 5 look too severe? Hide my layer here to check. 4 actually looks like it works a little better. Now, one thing I didn't point out when we first started was the first thing I do usually is to sit down, look at the image, and decide what my layers are going to be. And they'll change over time while I'm working on the figure, but this is a good start here. We have our horn. We have our crown too. The crown actually is probably going to need to be under the horn, so we'll move that layer down later. I've got note that I have a hair upper and a hair lower. Why do I have that? Well, my assumption is that what I'm going to be doing is making this particular area here the hair upper, because it needs to lie on top of not only the horn, the crown. Well, basically, those are only two things it needs to lie on top of, but it's got to be on top of the head shape here as well. And then this area over here needs to be behind the crown and under the horn. So it's just easier to make them as two different layers when we're putting them together. There's a lot less work you have to do later on trying to make sure things are showing or hidden if you do it properly in the first place. So we have our horn shape here. We're going to look at Luna's horn over here. To get the right color, we're going to use the eyedropper, and I'm just going to click it. That automatically changes my fill color in the bottom left to the right color. Oops. Right, so what I've done there is I've held down Shift and I've clicked in here, and that should have automatically changed my stroke paint to the right color. Actually, I believe I may have changed my fill, which is not entirely what I wanted to do. We can do this properly, I believe, by selecting the right figure, hitting the F7 key, and then clicking on the color we want, and that should have changed. Nope. I apologize, it's been a while since I've actually done this, so let's try Shift. Oh, all right, I did have it right in the first go. So that's actually changed my stroke paint to the right color. Unfortunately, I need to turn my fill off. Ha! I set both of them. All right. We'll change these to Control-Shift-V, copy our style out, although these probably need to be 3 because they're not exactly the same width as this one is, so we'll just copy these out. And while we're here, we might as well make an interior shape that matches this guy. And this guy we're actually going to need, hit F7 again. We're actually just going to need to fill the horn. So we'll click that. See, that's the key. If you hit Shift click, then it will change the stroke. If you just click it, it'll change the fill color. In this case, we just want the fill color. Again, this shape has come in on top of the horn, so we're just at N to move it down to the bottom. It doesn't quite fit, so we'll just kind of fiddle with it a little bit until it does. All right, you have Luna's horn right there. But I'd assume that really what you want to do is blend this in on top of everything else. So we're going to need to build her crown next and then work on her upper hair area. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide our horn, and we'll worry about the horn later. Now we're going to take the crown. The crown actually needs to be underneath the horn. So we're going to take that layer and we're going to lower the layer down. Now when we look in here, you'll note that Inkscape still has a silly bug where it doesn't actually move the layers until you click on a different layer to look at it. But our crown layer now is under the horn. So what we can do is build our crown. We'll do pretty much the same thing. We'll start kind of out here, and then we'll go into here. And this is kind of interesting because it's got a dual bend. Kind of out there. That looks okay. Just kind of the framework here. We know that the crown kind of has a bend, lies underneath there. And then this is where it gets tricky because this, not only does U bend up, but then this end bends down. Kind of like an S shape. Doesn't look too bad. We'll make that a smooth node to smooth her out. This one should be a smooth node too. Very similar to what we did with the horn over there as usual. Well, very similar to what we always do in Inkscape. I find myself constantly saving these files while I'm working just by hitting Control S. Probably a good habit to get into, just in case you accidentally pull the power cord on your computer like I tend to do often. But that's probably just my usual clumsiness showing. So feel free to do whatever you need to do. This is looking pretty good. We'll make all these smooth nodes to smooth out a little bit. It doesn't look quite as sharp as I would like it to, but you know, it's probably good enough. So this one is actually going to be pretty easy because what we're going to do is we're going to do both the fill and the stroke color, and we'll be done with this particular shape. That'll make it easy. First of all, we need to choose a proper width. We'll just choose 4 because that's what we chose for the horn. It's going to be consistent. Hit F7 to pick up the eyedropper. Then we'll go over and we'll click the black for the fill. We'll shift click for the stroke. And then our object is going to be pretty much done already. So now we can see that when we turn the horn back on again, the horn will be on top of the crown. Pretty much exactly what we wanted. I don't quite like what I'm seeing here. There's a bit of a... Unfortunately... It's being a little silly on me. The curve there doesn't look quite as round as I would like it to, so I'm going to have to fiddle with it a little bit, perhaps. Whoa. Inkscape being silly again. It's just personal preference. I'm just fooling around with it here. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to put this horn in its place. So we're going to do the hair upper next. And because we're doing the hair upper, we'll just hide our horn and we'll hide our crown and we'll work on the hair upper. Hair upper is going to have a spot here and a spot here. It's also going to have spots that go over to there and over to here, and that looks pretty good. Line bending for champions. Well, certainly for princesses, if not champions. I don't know, it's almost like I was going to say princeps there or something. I guess I've been playing too much Rome Total War 2. Anyway, we'll make this guy smooth before I try to rework this. Okay. We'll make both these guys a width of 4 to match our other dudes, our horn and crown. We'll make them both the same size, and now, of course, we're going to have to turn these into objects with the Control-Alt-C command because we need to shape the corners. You can do this, of course, in 2 ways. You can either delete the lower node and try to shape it out, or delete the upper node and try to shape it out. Usually the way you want to do it, it depends on which way you're trying to make the shape go. In this case, I'll delete the upper and kind of squeeze that out that direction. That looks a little odd. I think that this is already a smooth node here. This one should probably be a smooth node as well. We're going to have to show that layer again so we can see what we're doing. And we have to work on the other side now. Seems like it's a little undefined as to whether this side ends in a sharp point or not, but it just seems to make things look better if you make them all end in sharp points, so we'll do that anyway. Things didn't seem to be lining up quite as good as I wanted, so I decided I'll delete those extra nodes, and it turned out pretty well, actually. Although this point is just a tad sharper than I would like it to be. Well, that's probably good enough. And we do the same thing with this node here. This one looks like it kind of just ends in her ear area here, so we're kind of trying to make it look like that. And of course, when you're coming back to work on her ear, then you would come back and fix that. Doop, 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 smooth nodes. Show the layer again so we can see what we're doing. That's a little too much, perhaps. Not too bad. We want to keep that sharp corner there on purpose. This is kind of interesting because her hair kind of curly cues up above her nose. You also want to be smooth. All right. We pretty much have our hair going on here, so let's take our hair and we will change our fill color to match the stroke color of her hair. In this case, because we're now dealing with objects, the interior is going to be our fill instead of the stroke. I still think that looks just slightly odd. You can spend forever adjusting this to try and make it look right to your eyes. You'll have to get to a certain point where you just say, well, that's good enough, it's done. So now we have our crown, we have our horn, and we have our hair upper here. The horn is still bleeding into the hair, but that's okay, because what we can do is we can go back to the hair upper layer, and we will create a simple shape here. This is going to be our fill color, so what we'll do is we'll take this object, and we'll set the fill color for the hair, this blue. We'll hit end to move it to the bottom. You can also do this by going to object, lower to bottom. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to take off the stroke paint because we don't really need it in this case. And I'll just gently move this over to fill out these areas here. That one went all the way to the end for some reason. Probably my usual snap logic to the rescue, or not. Yet another reason why there will be a lot of times when using Inkscape where you're just going to have to turn off your snap logic because it's real pain. So you like to snap all of my points into kind of the edge, and I really want them in the middle so that we can hide where all the color boundaries are. Oh, I'm going to have to turn my snap off Shift 5 or %, which will turn my snap off. Okay, so here's where things get interesting. You'll notice the horn is effectively in the right spot now. This area over on the right doesn't look quite right because, well, there's more hair that needs to be in there as well. So what we're actually going to do to fix that particular problem is we would go and we'd work on our hair lower. And so the next thing to do would be actually to draw a large shape that basically encompasses this entire blue wavy portion of her hair. And then we put our fill color in there. And the end result of that would be this over here would basically look like it was part of the hair. The same for this area over here. The lower hair, because it's underneath the horn and underneath the crown, would be underneath the horn and crown. So you would see the horn and crown on top and you wouldn't have any other issues. And everything would be just fine and dandy. So at this point, I'm going to stop the tutorial. And if anybody likes what I'm doing, I'll continue on later.